Welcome to the Never Throw in the Towel podcast. This episode is sponsored by Test Me. We are thrilled and really proud to be sponsored by Test Me because they are an organisation that share our values and mission around improving men's physical and mental well-being. Test Me Health focuses on the important link around gut health and well-being, which is so important because it's gaining knowledge around food that impacts the gut in a negative way, which can be a game changer because we are gaining knowledge and education around nutrition and diet, ultimately resulting in a much better and safer lifestyle. I just want to say a huge thank you to Test Me for backing and supporting the Never Throw in the Towel podcast, which is stories around resilience and adversity in hope to help and inspire, and trying to change the culture around men talking with the message that talking is a strength, not a weakness. Please like and subscribe to the channel because more likes, more subscriptions, and the more this channel grows, ultimately, this will help more people. Enjoy the show. Never throw in the towel. So, welcome to the Never Throw in the Towel podcast. I am over the moon to have our guest here today. He has attended numerous events on our men's retreats. He is a heavyweight professional boxer. Man Mountain, standing at 6'7". He is the Disney Drago, Stephen Robinson.
Good.
Thank you for being here, Stephen. The main reason for me getting you on the podcast, I mean, we kind of started first speaking on Instagram, and I thought it would actually be fantastic to get you as a guest, purely on the basis of how well you talk. I think about mentality, mindset, and you always talk like so passionately about like anyone can do it, like never give up. So take me back. Where does all that passion come from?
For me, you go back to your childhood and you think of where you could have been, what you were brought up with, what you were around, and you look at where the people are who you grew up with. And if I go back to that and I look back at the people who I grew up with, unfortunately, if they're not passed away, you know, they're in prison, the drug addicts, they're on the streets. And it's very sort of, a boxer who sits and talks about, you know, being on the streets, and I could have been and I would have been. But I think with me is I try and be as genuine as I can about it, because I am a massive believer if you can do whatever you want with the right mindset, with the right people around you. So when I take it back to the before boxing, it was football, and without football, I probably would have been in the same position as, you know, a lot of the people who I grew up with are in, and I had an amazing family who kept us grounded, and done the best to raise us the best they could. So I do, you know, I look and I see people who have achieved more than they could ever believe that they can achieve in, but I've also seen people who could have achieved so much more. I've played football with people who are some of the best players I've played with, and who hit 16, 17, find drugs, find women, you know, find alcohol, and they disappear off the mark, and you never see them again.
Yeah.
You could have been.
I think ability isn't enough, is it? You know, you can have all the ability, but if you haven't got the disciplined mindset I don't think you'll get ever to like top flight, you know, sports. Yeah. And whereabouts did you play? What position did you play football?
I was a keeper.
Oh, you were a goalkeeper.
I went over to America, then over to Hong Kong.
Oh, really?
Which got us into boxing off the back of an injury. which was I was told I'll never play again. And
right.
Become fat and depressed, and
Right.
got into the boxing gym in 2013 off just the back of an injury. So I've only really been boxing for sort of 10, 11 years, and that was more so to lose weight. So.
Oh, no way. So take me back then. So, you talk about, you've shared them stories about your upbringing and stuff. So where did you grow up in the northeast?
So I'm from a place called Bladen. The area
Right.
now is all knocked down. It's it's probably not the worst place to live, but again, it's, as I say, it was the people who you were around and what you were seeing every day, and living next door to drug dealers, and
Right.
seeing the people come every day, and just being around that sort of every day, when you're seeing and you're smelling and you're around that, and you're not the brightest kid anyway.
Aye.
And you're a naughty kid. It would have been very easy to go down the path the same as a lot of them. But.
And so when did you actually, get into the boxing? And did you? I'm guessing you've always been like a big lad, have you?
So when I went to America when I was 20, and I remember
Right.
coming back, and I remember getting picked up from the airport, and it had been 9 months, and I remember my mum seeing us at the airport, and she was in shock because I think I'd grew about 4 or 5 inches, so I wasn't.
No way.
I wasn't the biggest. I definitely wasn't the biggest in school by not even close, and.
Right.
I was sort of up until I was about 21, 22. I was probably 6'1", 6'2".
No way.
And I just had a sort of
You're
big
joking.
growth spurt over in the States, and I come back and people were just like, what the hell's going on? And
What are they feeding you in America?
I'd sort of just stretched out and like rolling pinned out and grew a few inches, and I think I went over a size 11 shoe, and as I left, I was in shops buying size 13s and 14s, and it was sort of like I say, I don't know if it had anything to do with the sun or the food or full on photosynthesis over there. It was mad. So no, I wasn't ever the biggest in school.
Right. I thought you would have been the kid who was like 6'7" at
I was a
12.
little fat kid with glasses up until sort
Really?
of, which is probably why I got into boxing off the back of fighting all the time, off being that little fat kid with glasses and
No way.
getting the piss taken out of us all the time. And in the school I was in, it was sort of fight or flight, and I chose fight all the time, which got us into a lot of trouble and brought us to where we are today.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting though. People can, if they take one look at you now and seeing like a man mountain who's 6'7" in shape, just looking like your stereotypical alpha male and stuff. But it's interesting to hear them stories where it's like, I wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
Like I was, and I think you do tend to get that with guys who get into martial arts or into boxing. A lot of the time it's through actual situations that they've been in the life. And what was it like then? How did you find getting into boxing? Because I'm not saying we've got similar stories, but I was always a football lad. Like all my life, I come from a very much a football family, and football was just it was just a massive thing in my family. So not that I needed pushed, but I was massively into football. And then all my life, I was terrible academically, and all my life I just wanted to be a footballer. Like I was just so dedicated to trying to be this professional footballer. But then later in life I did discover boxing. And obviously I've not done it at professional level. I've only had a couple of white collar fights, and I'm having a fight in December. But for me, because I was always really sporty, always done every sport, but like boxing, I think, is a total different level of fear, adrenaline, and all that. How did you kind of transition into being a football lad and then actually into boxing? It's getting punched in the face.
It was a funny one because I remember. So I was 138 kilo. So I'm now 111. So
right.
adding 26 kilo to myself. I was 138 kilo. I was fat as a pig. I was depressed. I didn't have any GCSEs. I had no ambition. I had no job. I'm back from Hong Kong, and I'm thinking, what's next? Like,
was this from the after the football stint?
So I come back from Hong Kong in 2013. February 2013, I come back. By July, I was 137 kilo.
Right.
So I'd sort of
out of shape type weight.
Oh, massively out of shape. I mean, massively out of shape. And I'd sort of walked into the local well, it wasn't even a boxing gym, it was a gym. And I'd sort of, I said, listen, I was on tag, and the boxing class was 7:30 to 8:30, and I said, listen, I need to lose some weight. I've had X amount of weight, and I was speaking to Mark Clazel, who's the owner of the gym and now my boxing coach and manager. And
I know Mark from years ago.
You played football with Dom as well, didn't you? Was it Dom you played football with?
Dom
Clazelli's brother.
Ah, right, okay. I'm trying to think. It was more Mark because I went. He trained at a gym at I think Ranger Park, a boxing gym.
Yeah.
So I had a friend, a good friend of mine called Julian, who was a boxer, and Mark. I think Mark used to be a kickboxer as well, if I remember rightly.
He did. He got into boxing.
He originally come from that background.
Yeah.
So I know Mark from years ago, and I remember watching you run on the telly boxing, and then I clocked Mark. I was like, right, he's his coach.
Yeah. So I'd spoke to Mark. I was like, listen, I'm wanting to lose weight, etc. And he was like, we've got. It was a tiny little gym. It was sort of, this was, you're going back 11 years ago, and now you've got CrossFit classes, you've got, spin classes, you've got this, you've got that. Back then it was Zumba. I think my choices were Zumba, leg, bums and tongues, or boxing. I was like, I'm never going to get into fucking Zumba or leg, bums and tongues, so I think boxing's the only sort of thing I can do. And then you tell us it was 6:30 till 7:30. I thought, I'm going to have to get into Zumba, aren't I?
Well, hey, it might be good for your footwork.
Well, I was going to say I need to do something with my footwork. So there was a boxercise class on 5:30 till 6:30. So started doing boxercise with your middle-aged women and men, and just started doing that. And then he had a body sparring class on. He had a big heavyweight called Curtis, who was professional at the time. And they used to put him in the middle, and then all these people that had done the boxercise classes would go in, work with them for sort of a minute, 2 minutes, whatever you had in you. Come out, the next person would go in.
Oh, like a shark tank.
Yeah. So I went to these boxing classes, and I was just high in punches and body sparring with Curtis and doing what I was doing, and then it's sort of the classes extended, and Mark had said, listen, I'll do some pad work with you on the days that there wasn't the boxercise class on from 5:30 till 6:30. He says, you've got the attributes, you've got the height. Let's see what you like. And we're doing boxing classes from 5:30 till 6:30 with Mark.
And how old were you at this point?
23.
23. So 23. It is late 22, to get into
23.
Boxing, like very late. Very late.
It was all just to simply lose weight.
Wow.
Which stems back to never give up, because that's why I walked into a gym 10 years ago, and this was, like I say, this was now June, July, August, and as I say, I'm 137 kilo, and Mark's sort of taking us on the pads, and I'm dieting a little bit, and we're losing, a pound, and then putting a pound back on. And I drank at this point. I've never drunk in sort of 9 years, and I drank at this point, and I'm going out on the drink, and I'm knocking around with the wrong people, and Mark had sort of, were in the gym, and it was my first boxing class. I was off tag, and it was my first boxing class that I was allowed at. And some kid, Jamie, his name was, he hit us. I was putting my wraps on, and he gave us one of them daft cock shots, and he got us right in the testicle, and I flipped. And I flipped him up. I picked him up. I held him on the floor, and I put my knee in his chest. And Mark separated. We kicked us out of the gym. Kicked him out of the gym, and I'd been kicked out of the gym, and then I think a few people had sort of spoke and said, "Listen, it wasn't Stephen." And I got a text off one of my pals who was training there, Tully, and he said, "Listen, you're allowed back to the gym." So I went back to the gym and started sparring, started doing the things boxers would normally do, instead of just hitting a bag. And
how did you find getting into the sparring, getting like punched in the face and whatnot?
I mean, if anyone's ever seen any of my fights, I think you'll realise I'm a bit numb to being punched in the face. It's not something that's ever bothered us. Hands down, walk forward, chin out, and just go for it. And that's never changed in 10 years. I've not learned anything in boxing. I'm still just that daft kid who'll have a pagger with you. For me, it's 10 rounds on the big market, and that's how I treat a fight. Like, because
what is that? So actually, like, is there always been a natural fighter in you?
I think that's why I got into boxing.
Right.
And when I went down and was sparring, and I've as I say, I've always been that fat kid with glasses, and being in the school I was in, and being brought up in the area I was brought up with, it was 24/7 jokes, and it was to the point where I was fighting all of the time.
Really?
And it hit a point where it was sort of, when you're the hardest kid in the school, and then you've got other schools contacting.
Oh, so were you that guy? Were you like, because there is something at school, there is always the official hardest in the year.
It was funny, because I remember
takes
a
me
kid
back.
called Larry, and Larry was 2 years above her, and Larry's a police officer now, so I definitely I shouldn't be saying this, but I remember Larry was 2 years above her, and Larry was this hard,
right,
this hard kid who everybody feared, and.
In the same school or different school?
In the same school.
Same school.
I was in year 9, he was in year 11 at the time.
That's a big jump as well.
And I remember, he had pubes and tattoos, you know what I mean? So I'm sitting there with a squeaky voice, my bars hadn't even dropped. And I remember
pubes are a big deal at school.
Massive, them Belcher chains and them saddle rings and stuff, you used to see people and think, he'd be hard as nails. I'm sitting in we didn't have money, I'm sitting in my pony coat, and he's got his mirror peak on, I'm thinking, yeah. So I remember somebody coming up to us and saying, Larry wants to fight with you, and I'm thinking, does Larry want to fight with me? And I remember it had been organised, and I think it was because I'd said something, yeah, he was seeing someone in my year, so Larry's a nonce, by the way. He was seeing someone in year 9 and he was in year 11, and I'd said something.
Right.
That wouldn't be accepted now, but I'd said something to his girlfriend was called Justine at the time, and I'd said something to Justine like, I can't remember exactly what I said, this was before Jimmy Savile and all that, so I wouldn't have called him any of that. So I can't remember exactly what I said. And
Right,
the
okay.
next thing I know, I'm having a fight with Larry after school down at the garages at the bottom.
An official straightener.
At the bottom of the street, and I'm thinking, you know, I've got this kid, and I think Larry boxed. Larry boxed for Bladen. Bladen's not there anymore, but Larry boxed for Bladen.
Oh, really?
I'm thinking,
That's
a
skill set. A skill set is massive in a street, like in a straightener.
Well, it is, but at the same time, I think when you've got somebody who's biting you and you know,
it's completely different game.
It's a different. And I remember getting down there. And I remember I was standing with a kid called Phil Reed. There was Phil. There was a couple of others, and I remember saying, "Hold me glasses." I passed me glasses. I went up to him. We ended up fighting, and I ended up grabbing his testicles just in the moment.
Right.
And I bit him, and he was on the floor, and I remember being on top of him and doing what I was doing. I think I poked him in the eye, and you know, the next thing, it was the next day in school, and it was sort of everybody was that's all everybody was talking about, and you know, you had the Sony Ericsson phones, and everyone was infrared and the you know, the
right.
footage of people were videoing on the Sony Ericsson Walkmans, and you were sitting in the yard getting it when the bell went, "Oh, miss, give us 2 minutes." You know, and I remember everyone calling us, you know, you're a dirty bastard, you bit him, and I'm thinking, oh, it's fight or flight type thing, and this was way before I knew about anything mentally. It was just sort of, I was just a daft kid who had never give up attitude, which is what I've always had as a kid.
Right, okay.
Which is what, you know, because I could have easily said, I'm not fighting a year 11. I'm no chance. But it was sort of, I'd been put in a position of, you're fighting this kid, there's no way mentally am I going to go, I'm not. So
right,
mentally,
okay.
you sort of, I remember this sort of happening, it maybe it's 10:30, 11 a.m. So I'm all the way in school till 3:30, knowing that I'm fighting this kid 2 years above me, and I've got 2 breaks. There's a possibility of us seeing him on the yard. Everyone's coming up to us on the yard, and it was sort of just, I'm fighting.
Right.
And being in the gym, it was that was my mentality. It's a fight. You know, if I'm sparring, I'm fighting, and it's, if he hits you twice, you've got to hit him 3 times.
And how do you approach sparring then? Is it different if you say you're sparring someone from the same gym as opposed to if you go into another gym? Are you always trying to win the spar? How do you approach that?
It's very different now. I've massively changed me because
because it's about learning, isn't it?
Yeah, sparring's a learning.
Yeah.
And everything that you've been practicing and drilling into you, that's where you know, put it into practice. It's like pre-season friendlies, and you know, it's like when you finish training and you just have that game, you know, with each other. It's no different to that, and you know, every bit of me going into the boxing side of things I've always had that football. So I've always sort of compared it. And Joe Calzaghe's father used to do it with him, because Joe Calzaghe's dad was a musician.
Great documentary.
Unbelievable.
I couldn't believe the story of the dad having zero background in boxing.
Scary.
But he was doing it to drums.
All off that. And
Mad.
when you look at Joe Calzaghe and you find a fighter who has more punches,
I know.
You'll not find one.
Yeah.
You know, and that's that was his drive.
Yeah.
And his drive in life was his music and you know, transitioning music to boxing.
Yeah, unbelievable story that.
And mine was the same. Mine was transitioning the street kid in me, the idiot in me, the daft kid in me, into a boxing ring and learning respect.
Yeah.
That, you know, there's people out there who's better, who's harder, who hits harder, and making sure that you give them the respect.
Yeah.
And you go into the ring.
Yeah.
Knowing that, you know, there's a possibility there's only one winner coming out that
way.
Ring.
I think for me, I think my core, my sporting background has it's influenced everything in my life in terms of how I've conducted myself and then how I've evolved into business. But it's fun for me. I always put it down to them fundamentals of the sporting background of just like competition, and all of them things are good. That's why I think sport, especially nowadays with kids, with computers, social media, a lot of these kids they're not out as much as we used to be when we were young lads. Like I remember being a young lad doing hares and hounds, blocky, football, using your clothes as goalposts, all of that type of stuff. A lot of the kids don't do that as much now because of they're in the room, they're on doing the gaming and all that. So I think this having kids in sport, I think is such it's so good for them because you can use it in other aspects of your life. So talk me through then. So you've started being on the pads. You've been told by your coach that you've actually got the attribution stuff. So when did it start to transition into actually we're going to have a fight?
So this was we're now sort of, so I've walked into the gym in the July, 137 kilo. We're now sort of in November, December time. And I had my first fight in the February, and I was 130 kilos. So I was 7 kilo down. I'd learned a bit of boxing, and I stopped the kid in the second round. It was at Bishop Auckland Social Club, and I remember the atmosphere, and I remember, as I say, I never ever got into boxing to fight. Never joined a gym. I walked into a local gym, which was the closest gym to me at the time. It was in Swalwell, with the ambition to lose weight. Whatever that meant, that's where I was going to go. Still, got the mindset of where am I going to go with my life? I was working, at the time I was working in the filming industry, doing daft security jobs. There was a film come up called Beowulf, and that was meant to be the next big thing that was coming to the UK. And there was Vera, and I was just, looking after Portaloos for 9 to 8 quids an hour, for 12-hour shifts, and that was sort of the only ambition and the only drive and the only job that, I ended up going through my SIA license off the back of being told to do this. And this was again before, I never wanted to do the doors, and that wasn't the reason getting it. And it was more so for some money coming in.
Aye.
So I had my first fight in the February, and I remember the atmosphere and the feeling of the buzz, the adrenaline. I've never touched a drug, but if I could bottle up the feeling of that first time my hand got lifted and seeing that bloke hit the deck and the referee jumping in and stopping it, if I could bottle that up and give it to people, there wouldn't be a drug in the world. Because there's no better feeling than the sort of the realisation of you can do it. And I think that feeling there is the best feeling in the world. There wouldn't be any drugs out there.
Mm-hmm.
Should you be able to, and that's why I'm a massive, driver of you can do it, believe in yourself. Because once you've hit that feeling, once you've got that sort of boost in that feeling, it's like, okay, I want to go further. Because from that first fight, it was like, right, when's my next fight, Mark? When's my next fight?
Yeah.
When's my next fight, Mark? And, right, Stephen, you're going to have to start running. And I'm going on 3-mile runs in the pissing down with rain with me hood up. And we're talking, it's February now. I've had my first fight, so it's cold.
Was it a white collar then? How was it?
No, it was amateur.
Amateur.
I've only fought amateur.
Right.
So I had 47 amateur fights.
Really?
So lost 5.
Right. So that's quite that's more than I thought.
It was Mark was very, very active.
Right.
And it was sort
it's a hell of a lot of fights, that.
As the weight come off, the Ivan Drago thing got more and more noticeable. And there was a kid from down this way called Chris Burton, who was a professional Hightower.
Oh, I know Hightower, Chris.
So Chris,
yeah.
Chris.
I was thinking. So I know Chris really well.
Yeah.
So he's done my. I had a bar for 10 years. So Chris Hightower is always been. He's always had the door.
Yeah. He's opened the bar now as well.
Oh, has he?
Aye,
Right.
Chris has opened the
Lovely
bar.
fella.
Fantastic.
Lovely bloke.
And I think I owe massive thanks to Chris because
Right.
I remember we're sort of 9 fights in now, 10 fights in, and I remember Chris Burton was having his return into the ring, and I was told, right, you're going to go sparring Chris Burton. And he trained underneath the football stadium of rugby stadium, whatever. I think it's a football stadium.
Aye, yeah.
So
I know what
his
you mean.
boxing gym was there. And I remember first going in, I remember getting absolutely punched all over by this bloke. And in my head, I'm still just a kid. That's I'm not a kid, but at the same time, I'm new to this sport. So I'm a kid in the sport.
Well, he'd floated around high level. He's
He fought
David
British
Hay.
champions everywhere.
Yeah, aye.
And, he fought for the British title, and I remember just absolutely getting annihilated. And I think it was my first sort of time sparring 3-minute rounds, and it was sort of fucking hell. And it was that mindset of, well, I want to go again because I'm not having that. I'm not having him take the piss out of me.
Right.
That was never Chris's mindset.
No.
That was just, he was training for a fight.
Yeah.
And in my head I thought, who's this kid? He's punches all over and my eyes out, my lips out, and I'm home and with me. It was the same as when I used to play football, and if we lost a game and I used to see people drinking in the bar, it used to really frustrate us. That they were happy.
Right.
I think, we've just lost. What are you happy about?
Right.
And I remember sitting in the house for 2-3 days. I was fucking fizzing. I was fuming. I was like, this Chris Burton fucking sell. Like, I was livid. And then, but he's such a nice bloke.
Yeah.
Like, that was never, he's just, that's his job.
He's just basically got the better of you in the spot.
I owe Chris so many thanks because I went sparring with him for probably a year and become better and better and better and better.
I didn't know you knew him that well.
To have to compete with him, I had to get better.
Right.
There was only so then I was sparring people in my gym, and I was stopping them. But although that was never the point of sparring, they'd never come back.
Right.
And it was sort of, I was learning so much without realising.
Yeah.
So that first beating, second beating, third beating, fourth beating, and I remember sparring with a kid called Robert Ismay, who'd done the same, absolutely punched us all over, and I was close to crying with anger. And Mark used to do this thing where he used to put bands around with, so what, literally toe to toe, and that was Robert. Robert was an inside fighter.
Oh, really? Right.
Just with uppercuts, and I'm trying with big daft gangly arms to try and work on the inside. And,
right.
Again, it was all Mark and Giuseppe's sort of thought of Stephen needs to get better on the inside. Stephen needs to do better with this, and without me realising, they were just getting me to where I am now.
Yeah.
And I'm getting so angry, and my mindset is, well, one day I'm going to be better than him. One day I'm going to be working him on the inside.
Aye.
I'm going to be catching him with uppercuts. And that was my mindset with Chris Burton. One day I want to win a round.
Right.
Because I'd gone 70 rounds getting punched all over. I was like, right, nah. One day I'm going to beat you. You're going to give me respect, the respect I'm giving you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my mindset. All I wanted was to gain the respect of the other fighters who were better than me.
Aye.
For them to say, "You ready?"
Aye.
type thing, and that's all I wanted. I just wanted, a bit of confirmation of somebody who's greater than me to be told, "You ready?"
Aye. It's a great message, that, though. Again, I think in schools now, they don't. That a lot of the time they don't like winners or losers.
No, it's
But
shocking.
But like the thing is though, there's nothing wrong with losing, because you know what? You can go again.
You've got to learn
You
to
can
lose.
go again. And I think there's a book, John Kavanagh. It's never a loss. It's always a lesson.
Yeah.
I think that's the quote. And you can actually learn so much from losing, more than probably winning.
Yeah.
So I think that, that what you just said, what you've just said there, I think for people watching is such a great message of like, you just you get beat, you just go again.
Sorry.
Go on.
I think you've got to have that mindset, because you look at the greatest boxers of all time and you compare, everybody, because they've never lost, your Joe Calzaghes, your Floyd Mayweathers, they've gone, so far without losing. But the people that have lost, like say Canelo, and a prime Canelo against a prime Mayweather, who would win? A prime Frock against a prime Calzaghe, who would win?
Yeah.
And these people have never lost, so they've never had to learn, they've never had to bounce back from a loss.
Yeah.
And one of my greatest quotes is Alfred says to Bruce Wayne, you fall over so you can learn to pick yourself up. And that's the reason why we fall over as a kid.
Yeah.
To learn to pick yourself up. And that's the same as in life, and it's not just in sports. It's anything. If you get sacked from work, if you come out of a relationship, if you're unfortunate enough to lose somebody close to you. I think for me, one of the worst things in life is just grieving a conversation with someone who you've lost. We don't realise how lucky we are. We always look at, I haven't got this and I haven't got that, and I want that Stone Island coat, I want that Rolex watch, I want that new bottle of Creed, and that's all you don't realise how lucky we are with a roof over our head, how lucky we are with, people around who we love.
Absolutely.
And I think people don't really take for granted how short life is.
Aye.
And what our purpose on life is.
Yeah.
I think other than the boxing side of things, I think our purpose in life is to gain as much knowledge with the right people around us.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to have the right people around you.
Oh, completely. It's great what you've just said there. It's so true. I think environment is such a big factor. Like, yeah, I don't think you can, you can't really beat consistent environment. If you've got some real bad negativity, hostility around you, it's hard to beat that way. If you're around like-minded people, love, kindness, ultimately all of that's so important. I've experienced being in the wrong crowd.
Of course. From your aspect of things, I bet you when you transitioned from being that kid who was out every weekend, you found who your true friends were, because when you stop drinking, when you stop taking drugs, when you stop doing what you want to do, and when you want to better yourself, you'll always have them people that'll laugh at you.
Yeah.
And, are you coming out? No, I'm not on the drink. You're not on the drink? How on, man? Stop being a puff. Come on. And they're not friends.
Yeah.
They're bringing you down to them level. They're wanting that kid to go half as on a packet with. They're wanting that kid to go to the bar and buy 5 shots of Sambuca and bring it back to the table. And
yeah.
When you realise, when you come out of that and you realise how little your circle actually is.
Oh, completely.
That are there for you, that say, no, you're not going out on the drink.
Aye.
Staying in. Or, you'll ask your pal for a soda water and lime when you're at the bar, and they don't laugh at you and they bring you back a soda water and lime.
Aye.
And if you say, get us a pint then, and them go, no, you're not having a pint. You're off the drink. Do you want to go half as on a packet? No, you're not having a packet.
Aye.
You're off that, man.
Yeah.
They're the
Absolutely.
people you need to surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Because I realised how short my circle was when I stopped going on the drink.
Right.
When I stopped being that divvy ADHD kid, fighting every weekend in town, going and wanting to fight doormen, going and hitting people, with wet floor signs and doing daft things. And when I stopped being that kid, that's when I realised who my friends were.
Yeah.
And who was out with us, because I was that kid showing us video messages the next day and I'm getting off. And which is the reason why I don't drink anymore, because it just turned us into someone I'm not.
Yeah.
And when you realise that there's so much more to life than being around them people who, the negativity thing, you've just sprung on. You put a piece of fresh fruit, you put one piece of mouldy fruit in with all the fresh fruit, and all that fresh fruit's going to turn mouldy, and that's the same as you as a person. And I can only imagine what you've been through, being in the aspect of the media and on TV and being up there and being at the highest sort of, at the time there was no bigger show than Big Brother. It was the new sort of Maths and Geordie show. Now Big Brother's not as big, but when you were on it, it was the biggest show on TV. You had your Davina McCalls, that was massive, and there wasn't really a bigger TV series because there was no Love Island, Maths, Geordie Shore. These are all sort of new off the back of Big Brother.
Yeah.
And you weren't just in Big Brother as a sort of a guest. A lot of the TV was on you.
Yeah. I was involved in.
You were involved in a lot
the big
of it.
situations.
You were, and so. When you come out, it was sort of cameras getting hide in your face, I can imagine, and it's how you dealt with it. And like you say, you're getting invited. Do you want to come and open bar? Do you want to come and open this new club? And there's a pint, there's a bottle of vodka for you on your table. And that's just what you get given.
Oh yeah, I mean, I always remember getting told I was going to get paid to go to a nightclub, and I was like, but that's absolutely mental because I'm going in any case.
Yeah.
But it was transitioning out of it, and then all my friends were getting normal jobs, and that's when I was still gallivanting, acting like a young lad in his early 20s, like what you touched on before. Really, my big thing was like no direction. There was no routine because there was no job. Then getting into financial difficulties, and there was no purpose, and then just like self-worth. I was like, I thought I've got so much. I managed to get loads of success, money, fame, and now like I'm a loser.
Yeah.
And it's just, but. Like we've mentioned before, nothing lasts forever, and that's including the bad times. If you implement in your life the correct things, my thing was I got out, I moved area, and I actively like cut myself off from a crowd who were just acquaintances really, and I changed things up, got some direction. Got a job, and I was terrified of getting a normal job. Honestly, that was my biggest thing was like getting a normal job, and people would laugh at us because in my head I'd cooked up in my head, and this was obviously ego, pride, paranoia. But I thought I would be I'd be a laughing stock because for a long time I was like, pointed at as that sim from Big Brother. Yeah. Actually, the job was sound. The job was absolutely class. And most things where you cook them in your head, it's never as bad it's never as bad in real life as it. It's the beforehand them thoughts that you cook up. In reality, it's not even that bad, and it's
Well, I think we're in an unfortunate time where we're at a point in our life where when you've got them thoughts, and you go to the doctors with them thoughts. The higher you're on sertraline, the higher you're on propanolol, the higher you're on meds, and you've got 9, 10, 11-year-olds now with anxiety. And I'm thinking, when I was in school, I was misbehaved and I was naughty. You know, you had your diagnosis of ADHD, and that was pretty much it. You know, you were still even back in 2006. So you're only going back sort of 18 years. It's not like, you know, I'm not talking about back in the days like your granddad in the war, and you know, you're only going back to 18 years. You didn't have, and I think the whole now it's massively because of social media, TikTok, you know, and you've got kids taking their own life at 14, 15.
I know.
It's heartbreaking to see.
Aye.
They don't really understand the message of that. Never underestimate what you not being here will do, because I think in your head you think you'd be better off taking your own, like, listen, I'm worthless, you know, I'm a burden, I'm this, I'm that. You know, you've come out of a relationship, or you've had an argument with your family, or you've lost your job, or whatever it may be, the reason. But I think people underestimate how the effect it actually has when you do take your own life. And,
Yeah.
you know, if you're ever thinking about it, ask 10 people why you shouldn't do it, and they'll give you a million reasons why not to do it.
Yeah.
I think people underestimate how short the journey is and how precious time is.
Oh,
how
yeah.
precious life is.
Absolutely. It has a the pain always just passed over to the loved ones and the friends. And I've seen, you know, working in that field now, I've honestly seen so much like sadness, especially with the youth. And again, you've touched on like tablets. I've not from my own personal experience, but I have closely seen like real bad negative results from people getting medication. And I'm absolutely no expert in that field about medication, but I have seen really bad results of people who've been given medication, they've come off them, or honestly, I've seen such bad stuff. For one of the best things is Mother Nature. That's why I first done the retreat, where we just tap into Mother Nature. Like it's been proven that the colour green is good for your mental health. Getting out in the forest, talking, doing exercise, breath work, cold water, all these just basic natural things. They're the best things for you. They're the best things for me. Like,
and that we've got as well.
I know.
On the doorstep,
free.
Like, that's what I was just about to say. You don't have to be spending money. You don't have to, you know, half an hour of your day, an hour of your day, and which is why I hate when people go, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. You know, you sleep 8 hours, you work 10 hours. That gives you 6 hours of the day to if you give yourself 40 minutes to an hour to do what you need to do. You know,
100%.
In that time, no matter how tired you are, no matter how stressed you are, just give yourself 40 minutes.
100%.
Like I've said and I've touched up on, time's precious.
Yeah. And I think especially with mental health and, you know, suicides at an all-time high, I think, you know, me and you we're lads who've come from a sporting background, so we will probably, it's just in us, we love it. But for me, even if it doesn't interest you, you actually should be implementing some form of physical exercise and, you know, getting outside, whether that's just walking. You should be implementing that into your lifestyle, regardless whether you're actually into it or not. Because I feel as if you need to have those shields around your physical health and mental health now, because of all the stuff that we have in the modern day world with the social media, natural comparison, going down slippery slopes, and people are working from home. We had COVID. People a lot. Like we done me and Craig we done like a mini retreat, right? There was a young lad called George who attempted to take his own life, and he hasn't died, but he's been in a very long coma, and his mum reached out to me, seeing the work that we're doing with the project, and she said, "Listen, his best friends are like being really hit with this as well. Would you mind taking them out on one of those retreats that you do?" And I said, absolutely. And I couldn't get over it. These young lads, all really nice kids, really respectful, nice kids. They were around about 18, 19-year-old, right? And there was about 8 or 9 of them. And there was a good few of them that one of them hadn't been to a forest. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, I've never been to a forest. And he lives in the northeast. One of them was like he was really out of shape. And I don't want to be talking, I'm not wanting to talk badly about this lad, but he was out of shape. And his lifestyle was just not like, he was telling us how much he sleeps and doesn't go out of his room that much. And I was like thinking, like, this is like why the youth is so bad with mental health, because the young'uns they're not doing much. Yeah. And I think it's so important to, like what you've touched on there, just implement it into your lifestyle. And so what does your day look like then? Obviously you're a professional athlete, but what does your day look like and around that?
So my day is sort of, I wake up, I train every day, 10:30, and it's funny because it all depends on how I am mentally, because like you're saying, implementing certain things. So the whole Disney thing for me stems back to...
That's an interesting point.
I was never a normal kid, ever a normal kid. And I was always different. I was always unique. And the only thing that sort of, my mum said I was very obviously hyperactive, and I would never sit down and watch something. I would never really do anything. I was naughty. I'd wind my brother up. I'd wind my sister up, and I was constantly, doing something. And I think my mum bought my sister The Little Mermaid on VHS, and she put The Little Mermaid in. I think it might have been for Easter, and we were sitting, and my mum says she remembers I didn't take my eyes off the film for an hour and a half.
Right.
And I watched The Little Mermaid, and then it'd be later on, I'd be back to my normal self and say, put The Little Mermaid on, please. And she says, I'd sit and I'd watch The Little Mermaid, she says, and I'd sort of sing and I'd talk like The Little Mermaid and like Sebastian. And then it was Lion King, then it was Beauty and the Beast, and she just kept putting on films, Peter Pan, Snow White, VHS films of Disney films. And it was sort of at a point where I was obsessed with that. I wouldn't be naughty, I wouldn't misbehave, I wouldn't get up. Any other film, I would get up, I'd walk around, I'd be, misbehaving. And so even now, the whole Disney thing, people think is a gimmick, and it's absolutely not. If I'm having a shit day, I've had some bad news, or I'm feeling a bit shitty within myself, not only will I go for a walk or do some earthing or go in the cold pool, or, I'll go home and I'll put a Disney film on.
Right.
Bring us down.
That's class.
And, it'll just put us back on a level of happiness.
Aye.
Where it comes from, why it's, what it is,
Wow.
I don't know. But the whole Disney thing stems from if I've not slept for 2-3 days, or I very rarely sleep anyway, but it does hit a point where I'm physically and mentally exhausted off the not sleeping. And, you know, especially if I'm training hard and I'm in camp or there's things going on in my personal life, and you know, I put a Disney film on, and that'll
Aye.
be back grounded, and I'll go for a walk. So my day sort of consists of training, spending time with my nieces, my family, just doing as much as I can, you know, and then train again, go for walks, just in going and doing, you know, I do talks in schools, and
Oh dear.
there's a sort of
You are a great talker though. Like that's something like I'm a boxing fan, but that's something that really jumped out at me. Just how good of a talk you are, and it would often come out of when you've just done your fight and you do an interview, and it would just, you'd pour it out with like a burning passion.
But do you not think that is so much more natural than having cameras in your face and, you know,
Totally.
do this, right? You've got X, Y, and Z. You've got an interview in an hour. What questions would you like to ask? Before this, we never said what questions we're going to ask. This is all just, you know, off the cuff. What we're talking about now, but you get told. You know, I've been in interviews and I've had media. Right, this is what I'm going to ask you. This is what I want you to say, and say no.
Aye, I'm totally like that.
And I've been told, right, you need to call this kid out. You need to do this. You need. And I'm like, no, that's not me. That's not me. No. If a kid wants to fight us, I'm going to fight him because that's my mindset. You know, but I'm never going to sit there on social media and say, listen, you prick, I'm going to punch your face. And after a fight, I don't have any malice on anybody. We're both in there to do what we want to do. Everybody's got a story, and that's what you learn in life, that I'm not the only one with a story. I'm not the only one that was a naughty kid. I'm not the only one that's lost people in their life, and you know, I'm not the only one that this has happened to. Everybody's got a story. People are probably 10 times worse than my story, which brings you to why they're the person that they are and where they are. And you know, you go into that ring and you respect why they're in the ring. Because they'll have a story. Nobody walks into a boxing gym and wants to be punched in the face without being a little bit messed up.
Aye.
You know, or have a story, or you know, be in the ring for the right reason.
Aye.
And everybody's got a story, and that's what you've got to realise, that, you know, they're there because they've wanted a bit better themselves.
Aye.
They've never thrown in the towel. And, you know, even if they have thrown in the towel, they've still bounced back and thought, nah, I'm going to do something with my life. Because why have regrets? Why hit 50 and go, I wish I'd applied for that job. I wish I'd have asked that bird out. I wish I had have done that. I wish I'd have joined the boxing gym. I wish I'd have joined the football gym, the cricket team. You can't have regrets.
Aye.
Because you'll hit an age where you live on them regrets, and you question yourself. And when you start questioning yourself, that's when you know, depression kicks in.
But what you've touched on there, though, like storytelling, so that the storytelling is massive, and that's why we initially done the podcast. Really, the theme was really like blokes getting, you know, not just blokes, but getting people on sharing stories and doing storytelling, because the stories people can get hope from. I mean, I share this story all of the time, so apologies to anyone who's a regular listener to, but it is my favourite story, is the whole never throwing the towel in the strapline, they keep on living. That is literally a story. It was them words, but right at the end of my grandma's eulogy when she passed away, that I used, and I used she never threw in the towel, and that was just describing her fighting spirit towards getting stage 4 cancer. And I used those words because I wanted everyone to listen in attendance of, when you face adversity, this is how you should be like me grandma, because she never ever threw in the towel. And then a bloke who was at the funeral, came up to us crying, and he thanked us for the eulogy, and then later that night he sent us a message saying, "Listen, I've been really struggling with me mental health, being in a terrible dark headspace. I've had to been going seeing professional help." And he said, "I just wanted to let you know, like I've really clung on to those words that you said about your grandma never throwing in the towel." And it was like that's the power of storytelling, because I just wanted to give me grandma the best send-off she possibly could have. But actually, someone really, really clung onto those words, and that's the power of storytelling. And it's really interesting what you've said about, because I was gonna ask you about the Disney stuff, and obviously the Drago is that's self-explanatory, but the Disney thing's a really, really interesting one, and it's great, and it's also great of such a great contrast again from your big fighting man who's just openly gone, I love watching the Little Mermaid. Which is your favourite Disney? Which one's your favourite?
Because I was so obsessed with Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast and Lion King, because they were sort of 94, 95 and 96. They were at the time when I was probably at my worst of behaving, and my mum was probably, bless her, bringing up 3 kids in a council house with not the most money, and trying to look after me whilst feeding others, and she probably her finding me loving Disney was the best thing as well. So for me, them 3 were probably just chucked on all the time.
Pure nostalgia.
Yeah, it just takes us back. But even the message from Disney,
Mate, you're so right. I was just about to say that, because I watched my son's 3-year-old now, and I never really got introduced to Disney as a kid. I didn't really watch it, but because I watched them, I watch loads now, and I was just about to say what you've just said there.
The messages, not so much. But Disney's gone very woke.
I know. No. Why did they have to change? Why did they have to change the Little Mermaid?
Disney.
They didn't have it. It's
Disney's
stick to the
woke,
stick to
transgenders and lesbians and gays. But listen, if that's what Disney wants to do, Walt Disney won't be happy. But whatever meets there. But the problem is Disney's losing so many of the original fans, and to gain 1% extra of credibility from these, stop oil type people, but losing thousands and millions of people off the back of it, it's crazy. But the message,
I just think change it. I'm all for. I love everyone, but I just think if you've got why change it? You don't change a classic.
Just doesn't need chucked in your face.
No.
Which is the problem of what a lot of kids are dealing with these days.
Yeah.
My niece is 10, and there's a transgender in a class. Fine, absolutely fine, but it's chucked in the faces every single day.
Yeah.
They come in the other day and they had to colour the gay pride flag in, and you look back and you think, as I say, I'm not looking back to 50 years ago. I'm going back 15 years ago, 13 years ago. If that was given to me for homework, I would have scrumpled it up, chucked it at my teacher and told her to piss it. Imagine kids doing that now. Times in schools have changed so much, the things you get away with, and like you say, kids aren't naughty anymore because kids don't want to be out playing in the mud.
I think stuff gets pushed. Craig actually, shout out to Craig, by the way. He's not very well, so he can't be here today, so it's just me. But Craig had to go into the school because his daughter's, I forget how old his daughter is, but there was loads of stuff getting pushed on them, and he was like, "Look, no, that is not happening. Yeah. She's way too young to be fed this information.
You don't need to push it.
No,
what's out there is out there. That can't be changed. That can't be helped. But it doesn't need pushed on you.
Yeah,
it doesn't need told. You need to accept this. You need to do this. Because, as I say, that again isn't. helping kids' mental health and TikTok and being told, you'll be a millionaire you'll be moving to Dubai by the time you're 18. All you need to do is buy a few Forex coins, and they're seeing these sort of things every day. And, and in school, it's, as I say, like the kids of today, they're always ill. Obesity's at a sky high. Depression's at a sky high. Mental health, and you think that's only getting to a sky high because of media, because of, it's thrown out there so much. And I remember when Aaron Carter took his own life, and it wasn't like, look at Liam Payne now, and you look at like Caroline Flack, and even Gary Speed, even going back 10 years ago, it wasn't like media. And because it wasn't really spoke about. And these are so unfortunate that these people at the highest level of their game or their sport or whatever they were doing. But besides all them, there's your normal kids on the street taking their own life, which isn't spoke about. And it's all, I think it's all off the back. If I didn't have to have Instagram, I wouldn't have it. I absolutely hate the messages behind. So I love the messages behind this type of social media, but the social media of making people think that they need lip fillers, they need to be a size 8, they need to go to the gym every day, they need to do this, they need to do that, they need to take these steroids, they need to take this, they need to drink this protein. They're just things are hiding your face constantly. It's constant media, social media. It's just media coverage. Sell you this. You need to be this person. You need to do this. And there's too many people are just letting it take. And we're all now. Which again goes back to Disney's messages. Toy Story 5 is all going to be about social media. It's all going to be about that kids don't want toys anymore.
Oh, you really? Is that the angle?
That's the whole message behind it.
My son, I've watched them all the time. Cruise. My son loves that.
Toy Story.
It's actually quite hot. It's quite an upsetting thing because a little bit for me because it's as a parent it's fantastic, but you also like get a bit sad when you see your kid grown up a little bit because you're like oh man, I remember when he was like he could hardly talk, and you see when he starts like not being interested in his toys and stuff.
Well, Jordan Peterson reaches on a perfect. I absolutely love Jordan Peterson.
Aye, he's amazing.
I love him.
Yeah, he talks amazing well.
I went to see him last year. And
really? Aye.
It was just, but he talks about that. We've only really got kids for 10 years because from 1 till 3 they're just developing themselves, and then sort of from 15 onwards they want nothing to do with you.
Aye.
So you've only really got your kids for 12 years. You've got them for life, but you've only got them as a kid. That is going to want toys and play with action men and want to sit and spend time with you, go on holiday with you, sit and have the tea with you. And
100%.
Such a limited time. Appreciate that time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's something that I'm massive on. Something that I'm absolutely massive on. Like when I became a dad, I just literally took. I had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off work, literally, and the bond those, I'll never ever, and that's what I've heard so many like professionals, especially like high performers, a lot of them regret missing that time with the kids because it's just you can't beat it. But it is hard, like, especially I've got so much going on. When you're trying to be driven, you're trying to provide, and you're trying to do a load of stuff. Sometimes the family sometimes gets compromised with the time, and it is that you're not going to get a better message, really, are you? About like family is the most important.
Oh, definitely. We're going back to the messages of Disney, I've got a big tattooed on my back. Honor means family. and family means everything, and never leave anyone behind, or fly low and stitching. That is a perfect message, because family does mean everything.
Yeah.
And when I see people who don't talk to them, I've never spoken to my mum in 20 years, and I've never spoken to my dad, or I've never spoken
I find
to
that
them,
mad.
think, how can it get so bad
I know.
that you've stopped talking?
I know.
I get it. They're like, my mum never spoke to her mum, and there was reasons behind it, and you know, I get the real, but for me, like, again, that just makes my mum more loving as a person.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I'm a proper mummy's boy. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I am.
And it might be the whole ADHD thing. It might be, but you know,
I think, honestly, mate, so I've got 2 boys, right? And like, I am the most, one of the most affectionate, loving men you can ever meet, right? And I am absolutely a massive second to mum. I am a massive. There's no matter what I do, mum is the best, and it's. I think I don't know. I see it. I don't know whether you get a son and mother relationship. I don't know whether there's a bond like it. It's unbelievable.
what must be amazing for you to see as well from that side, where it's like, you know, you're bringing these people into the world, these kids into the world, and seeing that they've got that bond. And,
Oh yeah,
you know, it's
like
it's
the best,
amazing.
absolutely. Like for me, the one of the most important decisions you can ever make is as a bloke, is who you have kids to.
Yes.
And that's absolutely probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. Seeing how good of a mum my wife is to me boys, it's just like, yeah.
But it's funny because men have this stigmatism of you know, I think you'll have definitely had it from being in the media and being on the shows, and that, you know, men are just these, you know, wild beasts that just want sex and just are out there. And I get people come up to me at boxing shows and they'll say all the time, "Oh, bah, the way you look, and you must get women all the time." I'm like, I couldn't think of anything worse. For me, like, that's just not what life's about.
Aye.
You know, you hit an age where you sort of think you do just want that person who you can spend. You just want a best friend.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, as I say, men have this sort of, women think that men are these horrible people in the world, and that they do this and they do that. And I think now, especially now with social media and the way women are out there on all these websites, these OnlyFans and all this, I think it's actually so much easier, and you tend to find women are actually bigger cheats than men, but it's not something that's spoke about. I don't think it's something we speak about much, that women are actually so much worse than men, and it's the women that are the narcissists, the women that are the gaslighters, you know. But it's not something that's reached upon, because men don't want to talk about it and have this stigmatism of, I can't be talked about getting abused off a woman.
Aye.
I'm not going to sit there and say, me ex-lass used to beat us up, or me ex-lass used to tell us, you're not going out tonight, you're staying in. You know, me and you are doing something, I'm going out. And I think we're living at a time where men don't really speak about it enough, that women are so much worse than men. So, like you say, the fact that you've found a woman that you want to spend your life with, your best friend, is that's what's important. Because I think men and women, you know, aren't with people for the right reason.
Yeah, I think generally, a lot of men just aren't good at generally opening up about anything that remotely ties in with emotions and feelings.
They feel embarrassed.
Aye.
That's, you know, they're perfect to feel embarrassed, but they don't want to, you know, like you say, they don't want to talk, and which is why I love, you know, the whole message that you're on, because when I come on on the walks and stuff, I'm getting random people going, you know, have you got WhatsApp? And I'm messaging 2 or 3 people who I've been on the beach with and talked to, who I absolutely have no clue who they are, but they've sat and spoke to us for 40 minutes of the shit they're going through.
No, I think you've been absolute just unbelievable to come on the retreats, because.
But I don't think it's me. I think it's just anybody. I think 2 men in a room that are both going through the same shit. I think it just breeds positivity that they can speak. They're not embarrassed. They don't have to be embarrassed because we're all on the beach for the same reason. We're all on the beach because people think you're a professional boxer, you must have X amount of money, you must have all these birds, you must have all this happiness. And people don't realise how how lonely it actually is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I couldn't even begin to imagine what it's like at the top, because it is so, especially when you're in camping, it's a lonely sport to be in. A lonely sport to be in, and which brings you back to, you've got to have the right people around you, the right female, you know, your family, your friends. Yeah. So when you are feeling shit, when you are feeling down, because I see a therapist, I'll sit and talk about that, no problem whatsoever. You know, I'll sit and tell people I struggle. I'll sit and tell people, you know, I've lost family and, you know, friends to suicide, and that which I think brings me to the person I am today, which is why I'm so happy to talk about it. Yeah. I know what hole that's left, and as I said earlier, like, people underestimate what they're going to do to others by taking their own lives. Like, never ever think life's, you know, so bad that you need to take that, because if I can have one message in this whole podcast, it's never ever underestimate what, you know, what your absence will do to others.
Aye. Yeah.
Because it's frightening.
Aye.
How losing someone, you know, and you're not talking months, weeks, you're talking years.
Forever. Aye. Yeah. No, I think when you, like, when I have seen you on the retreats, I have noticed, though, there's a very much willing for you to, you can see that you do really want to, like, help. Like, you're like totally like, yeah mate, like, and I have seen that. And most people who have that in them, like myself, being in a certain headspace, you do, when you do really want to help. When you've been in that, when you've got some form of experience, I do think it does light a fire where you do want to help. And is that where it all kind of comes from you? Then is it just like the personal life experiences that you've had in that? I think in that so. Topic.
I think I know it's not, you know, life isn't rainbows and sunshine, and everybody has bad days, but it's about getting through them bad days. Like, as I say, I walked into a boxing gym because I was fat and depressed. And I've competed for my country. I've walked out to my national anthem. I've won titles in amateurs. I know. I lost 5 fights. I've boxed professionally. I've headlined the arena. I've grew up going to, you know, I remember going to Robot Wars at 6-year-old and watching, thinking, never thinking one day I'm going to be walking out to 11,000 people chanting my name. You know, I've done things that I would never, ever. So I've already won at life.
Yeah.
Losing and people telling us I'm shit on social media, and people saying I'm this and I'm that and I'm t'other. I don't care, because I've won at life. I've overachieved 1,000,000 times over. Yeah. And if I can pass a message on to others that you can do something, because 22, 23-year-old walking into a boxing gym overweight to where I'm at now would have never... There's a Disney film called The Kid, and it's Bruce Willis, and he goes back to his younger self, and his younger self's a little fat kid.
Oh, really? And I'll have to watch this. That sounds good.
If I could go back to, you know, 8-year-old me and say, you'll go to America, you'll go to Hong Kong, you'll go into schools and you'll talk. And then if I can go back to 15-year-old me and 20-year-old me and if you can just, if you look at where you've been and then where you are and what you've achieved and what you've done, like, as I said earlier, don't look at what you haven't got, look at what you have got. Look at where you've been, look at where you are. And I think that's such an important message, to stop looking at what you haven't got. Well, I want to be on 40 grand a year. Yeah, but 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have even thought you were going to be in a job.
Aye.
So that'll come. You'll get that mortgage, you'll get that girlfriend, you'll get that family, you'll get that job with the right people around you, the right manifest it, the right positivity, the right, mindset. You can do anything.
Yeah.
And which is why, again, I love Disney and I love things like this, because you are all big believers of A, never throwing in the towel, and B, never giving up. And C, just go for it.
Yeah.
Because life's too short.
100%. I totally couldn't agree more. If you really want, if anyone literally can do, if fundamentally, I think it has to come from some form of passion, or a need. But if you really, really want something, you can get it. Totally. Before we wrap things up, we've had an unbelievable chat. So the boxing, what's the where we're at? Is there any particular goals, ticks that you wanna?
Redemption. Listen, the last I've never ever spoke about injuries. I've never sat there and made up an excuse. I've never sat there and my first loss, I'd lost someone who was pretty much like a brother to us on the Tuesday before I fought on the Saturday. Sky wouldn't let us pull out the fight. Sky wouldn't let us, and that's one thing I've never really spoke about anything, because I'm not a sore loser. I lost. Mm-hmm. That kid didn't know what I was going to do. All that kid had to do was come in and beat us, and he beat us. Mm-hmm. And then the last two losses have been off the back of having one hand. I mean, you look at the last fight against Babbage, and I pretty much boxed a full fight with a left hand. So for me, I've had my operation, I've had an ulnar nerve replacement, and I've had my elbow shaved. And 6 weeks back training, get the cast off, get going again, and then I just want redemption. I know my worth. Mm-hmm. I've never been, touch wood, knocked out. I've never been hurt. And when I'm walking forward at you and hoying massive bombs, I know I'm going to put you to sleep.
Aye.
Which I've proved in seven of my fights. That you're all going to go to sleep when I hit you. So with two hands, I know redemption needs to be made. So get back in the gym in the upcoming weeks. Get back.
And is that spiteful, competitive side of your nature where you're like, you beat me, like what you had with Hightower. You beat me, but actually I'm going to come again, and I think I can get you. It
is. But at the same time, it's knowing your worth. Which is massively important in life. If you're in a toxic relationship or you're around people, friends that you don't know your worth, know your worth more than that. Mm-hmm. If you're in a job that you hate, like you're in a job for a long time, don't stay in that job. Get out of it. Mm-hmm. Get away from it, and if it's getting your mental health and making you feel low, get away from it, because know your worth in life. If you're getting treated like shit off someone, know your worth. And I know my worth. I know I'm worth more than that loss. And that's why I want redemption.
Yeah.
Because I know that I can redeem myself. I know I can beat myself.
And will you jump straight in, or will you have a bit?
Jump straight in.
Really, aye.
No, I'm not. I've never been one. You look at my record. I've never been one for fighting journeymen.
Right.
I never got into the sport. You know, I never got into the sport young enough to fight.
Right.
12 journeymen and become up there to then, you know, the first kid I fought had 7-1-5, lost. I think no, he had 8-1-5, lost 3.
Right. Okay.
You know, so the second one had 1-1-1, same as me. Third one had 1-1-1.
Right.
So you're going in with people against who you don't really know much about.
Aye.
Journeyman's never been one for me. I wouldn't have the drive.
Aye.
I know how lonely it is, and going back to you said earlier that you've never competed at my level, but at the end of the day, no matter what level you're at, it's a horrible, horrible sport to be involved with. Them 7 weeks you're in camp.
Aye.
It doesn't matter what level you're at. Everybody, you know, who steps through them ropes, male or female, deserves a medal.
Aye.
Because win or lose, you know, going back to what you said earlier, now you just get medals. You know, my 2 nieces Irish dancing, doesn't matter if they come 10th or first to get a medal. It's like, well done. And I'm saying to Ivy, no, you need a drive. You want to come first. You don't want to come last.
Aye.
No. And I'm trying to drive, like, I'll sit and play Crash Bandicoot racing with them and I'll beat them. And they'll sit and they'll cry and I'll go, well, no, you get nothing from, you need to want to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you need to want to do something. Paul Scholes' autobiography is perfect because he says his dad and his brother used to slide tackle him, and his dad played in goal for Villa.
Right.
And his dad would, you know, make sure that he didn't score against him. And, you know, all he wanted to do was become better. Score against my dad, I want to take it around my brother.
That's, totally agree.
That drive was there for him to become better. Had his dad have just, and let it in, would Paul Scholes have been the player that he become?
Yeah.
Probably not. So, you know, having drive and you know,
and going again. Going again.
Is massive.
Aye. And I think, it's, you know what it is though, you'll probably know this as well though. I don't know why it's different, but having losses in MMA is a lot more just, it's not that big of a deal. Where I think losses in boxing, like, for example, like Joshua, whether you love or hate Joshua, you know, I'm a barber, so I talk to blokes all the time for a living and stuff, and we talk about sport and boxing, and like, he needs to retire. It's like, well, why does he need to retire? Firstly, he's a fit man mountain. He clearly loves the sport, and I think whether you love or hate Joshua, I think he's got to have massive respect in terms of his mentality, because anyone who's ever beat him, he wants to go again.
Yeah.
And that it's you don't, just because you have a loss, like, winning and losing is so important, but like, you can go again.
Yeah, definitely. Customaro used to speak about it all the time, and you know, you look at the likes of.
I love his story, his quote, by the way, about the hero and the coward.
Yeah,
that's one of my favourites.
All of his quotes are absolutely phenomenal. Like, if you lose and you go and you put some Customaro on, or listen to some podcasts, or just some Jordan Peterson, you realise how little that actually means.
Yeah.
At the time, you think it's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
When you have your first loss.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got shithouses within the sport that are willing to drop you like that.
Yeah.
Put you back down until you build yourself back up.
Yeah.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
hard because you've got, you know, the shithouses in the sport that'll bring you back down.
Aye.
But yeah, Joshua, listen, it's what he's doing for the sport, getting kids off the street.
Yeah.
Putting thousands of pounds into local gyms, making kids believe themselves that they can do something, because he was similar. He got in the back, sold cannabis, got into the gym late.
Aye.
You know, off seeing his cousin DeGale win an Olympic bronze medal, and look at what he's done.
Aye. Yeah, he does. He gets a lot of. He does get a lot of.
Unnecessary stick.
Yeah, I think he actually deserves, like, you know, people say, oh, he's false, so that's not, but I think he conducts himself generally, you know, very, very well.
Even if he is false, he's getting a message across to
He's
others.
he's getting a message across, and he's conducting himself, and he's done so much for the sport of boxing.
Definitely.
But yeah, so we're about to wrap it up, but this might be a curveball. What's your best story? What springs to mind of your best story?
Do you know what? Boxing for my country. Like, joining a gym to lose weight, fat and depressed, and then walking out to my national anthem and wearing that Great Britain vest.
Wow.
Like, off going into a gym just to lose weight and headlining the arena. Like, these are two things that I'll tell, my grandkids this story, and it's out there on YouTube, and I can revisit that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think being able to go into schools and pass some wisdom down to others as well, and let them know that there is hope.
Mm-hmm.
There is hope in everybody's life, no matter how shit you think you're having it, or there is hope, and you will get there.
Mm-hmm. Class. Well, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. I knew it was going to be a good podcast, but absolute pleasure for having you on. And
Thank you.
Like to give all the guests, never throw in the towel.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank
matey. Top man.
Oh, cheers. Thank you very much.